I'd just like to say a few words on the topic of mental health, how we define mental health. It's a pretty basic thing. It's a basic thing, but we don't, there is no good way that we have at the moment of understanding what we mean when we talk about mental health. I'm sure a lot of people would totally disagree with this, but when you actually really look into you cannot help but see that whatever ideas we have of mental health, those ideas are only good as our philosophical insight into who we are. And as long as we remain on a superficial level, seeing things on a superficial level, and playing about with labels, really talking about who we pretend to be within the social game. That in that case, if that's the level we're stuck on, and it is the level we're stuck on, then when we talk about mental health, which is a deep thing, we're not really talking about mental health because how on earth can we talk about mental health when our standpoint is that of kind of an act or a pretense that we put on without realizing that we are putting it on, without being conscious of the fact. We're faking it, but we're not conscious of the fact that we're faking it. If we do get conscious of the fact that we're faking it, then that's pretty depressing. We'll probably have to take antidepressants then. But the thing about social life, which is for most of us, most of the time, the only life we know about, the collective life, it is all totally based on an act that we're putting on without realizing that we're putting it on. Society itself is nothing more than the agreement that we have, that is an implicit, i.e., unstated agreement, that we should all follow these rules without admitting that we are following rules, without acknowledging in any way to ourselves or anyone else that we are following these rules. When we do this, the, the, the outcome is a pretense, it's an act. If I'm following rules that have been imposed, the game rules, then I'm playing a game. It's not playing a game is not the same as being sincere. So straight away we've got a fundamental chasm, abyss between these two possibilities: the possibility of existing not in terms of thought, but in a more essential manner that has not existing in such a way that we can't understand what it is to be existing, nor can we um, adopt any way of talking about things and looking about things that gives us a feeling of having any clue whatsoever about what's going on. And the whole thing about us adults, is we go around the whole time thinking that we know what's what and we know what's going on. If you look at small children, they don't have to pretend to know what's going on. We're not going to laugh at them because they're not going to laugh at a small child or a baby because they don't know what's going on. They're allowed that, but when we grow up, we have to pretend we know what's going on. Absolutely don't. All we know is what's been agreed without us knowing that we've agreed to anything, what we regarding what life is or what life is supposed to be. So all we know about is the game, and we can't differentiate between the game, which we have decided upon ourselves, and the reality, life itself, which was not decided upon by ourselves, which has no limits and no rules, no guidelines, no boundaries to stay within. So we absolutely are stuck on this level of being stuck in the act without realizing it's an act. This is This is something that we could say as a theory or a suggestion or kind of an observation, philosophical observation, but it's more than that because if you go into a busy street, any sort of street with people in it, and watch watch people watching, as they used to call it, you will see after a while, if you're watching carefully, you will see that it's all an act. Maybe a very good act, maybe not such a good act, but you will see that it's all an act. We're all putting on an act. That's what's expected of us. We're doing what's expected of course it's an act. And even if someone goes diametrically opposite to what is expected of us, just the opposite, like, um, like a punk might do the opposite. Instead of dressing in a suit and tie, they dress in all the bondage gear and have safety pins to their faces and stuff. That is still an act because it only makes sense in relation to what we are reacting against. It doesn't necessarily make any sense on its own. So it's all an act. It's very hard to get out of this act. And you can see it once you start looking, you realize the difference between spontaneity and a persona and a kind of ego that's we've put together as a result of being trained by society, being trained by our families, being trained by everyone we meet. Again, you look at kids, they're laughing and playing, having fun. They're having too much fun. That's if they haven't been screwed up by adults, which often enough they have. They're having too much fun to play act, to pretend to put on an act. There's no need to put on an act if you're actually having fun. You can, just for fun. But when you put it on and don't know you've put it on and you're stuck in it, that isn't fun. That's actually misery. It's a long, drawn out exercise in misery that can only get worse. And that's our situation, all of us, just about all of us. It doesn't have to be our situation, but it is because we all copy each other and we're afraid to be different from each other. And so there's no mental health in this. We kind of implicitly assume there is mental health to be had and adapting so well to society that we're totally accepted and no one gives us a second look. Oh, he's definitely some guy. Only, of course, we don't think that. We just don't get any alerts about them. They're imperceptible to us because they're giving off all the right signals. So we could say, well, that's mental health. We've integrated, etc., etc. But all it means is that our act is very, very good and we fooled ourselves as well as fooling everyone else. That's not mental health. And if we were to continue saying, well, maybe I can get even better at playing the game, even better at putting on an act, such a fantastic act that absolutely no one will ever suspect. That's what we all want to do. That's where we perceive our well-being, even though we don't understand what we're doing. This is where we all perceive our well-being to lie in the supremely accomplished act. This is where what we take as being the pinnacle of life. That's what it's all. We'd like to be like that. If we see someone like that, we'd like to be like that. But this isn't a great situation to be in because when you're in the situation of having to put on an extremely good act, apart from absorbing all your energy, time, there's there's always the, the situation where the act might crack or fail, and then everyone's going to look at us. And so the apparent benefit of putting on a good act is that kind of lack of we can't relax in it. We can't ever just let go because if we let go maintaining the act, then the act isn't going to be there. So somehow we have to, well, believe that we are the act. And then when we relax, we can't really relax in life, but we can kind of say, okay, I'm chilling out, even though part of us is still putting the act on. And the part of us which isn't us, which is putting the act on, is then the one who has to enjoy whatever's been accomplished, achieved, which is mind numbing. That's a complete knot. And the fact that it's a complete knot just shows how messed up our idea of mental well being or mental health is, how absolutely messed up, because there's no winning at this one. The more we try to win, the more we scupper ourselves, the more precarious our situation gets, the unhealthier our situation gets, because the more dependent we get upon whatever strategies we're using to optimize our performance within the game. If these strategies let me down, and everything's going to let us down in the end, all these externalities, no matter what we're dependent upon, if it's the situation where I'm dependent upon something outside of myself to be okay, that's going to let me down. So there's my ill health right there, even before it happens. The way that I have construed good health is actually bad health, which, as I was saying, is totally messed up. But that's where we are. That's exactly where we are. Essentially, what this comes down to is that we're seeing things as if we were the ego construct or the idea that we have of ourselves. We're seeing things as if that was who we really are. And then once we do that, then we have a kind of view of mental health as something pertaining to the act, which is this whole idea of how can an act that I'm putting on have mental health? But then, if I truly, truly, honestly believe that I am that act that I'm putting on, then we'd have to talk in terms of a surrogate of mental health, which is the mental health of the act, which doesn't know it's an act. So then we'd have to ask, well, what kind of a thing is that?